Let's see here. Okay. So, Caitlin, if there's anything confusing, again, you can leave me a message in the chat box, or you can unmute your microphone and just speak up if necessary. We usually start my classes with a little bit of chanting, so I think we'll do that this evening as well. In yoga, this is called the pranava, which is just chanting Om together. This is a harmonium, and we're just going to use that to Om in. So if you'd like to join, we're going to chant Om together 3 times. Namaste. All right. So let's get into our yin practice. Again, on this end, at least the image is a bit delayed, but maybe it's not on your end. It's hard for me to tell. But we will move ahead regardless. So I will try and demo the postures as I said earlier. Now the image is frozen, and I do need it to at least be moving some, because otherwise it's hard for me to tell if you can see me or not properly. I'm doing the postures. All right, well, I'm gonna have to leave it like that. Okay, so today we're doing a spine series, a set of postures for the spine. And we'll start with a butterfly pose. So we join the soles of feet together, and then we push the feet out. And that's important because we want to influence the spine. So with these postures where the feet are brought together, very often people try and do this and they drop their knees down. Well, that's a groin stretch. And today we're not stretching the groin. So we're going to push our feet out quite far and then just relax the upper body forward and down over the legs. Okay. And then if you feel that you need some support, feel free to use some. You could put support under your knees, like a block under your knees. You could put a block underneath your forehead. Of course, you could use a pillow for something like that. You could rest your forearms on something. So again, it depends on what you need. Now, yin is not restorative. So Caitlin, I know it's your first class. So, this isn't about just relaxing and being comfortable. What we're trying to do right now is actually stretch the back of our spine. And so if we have too much support, that's not going to happen. So we want to use as little support as possible, but we still want to feel that what we're doing is safe. Okay, and relatively comfortable. We're not we're not trying to make ourselves uncomfortable, but some of the postures might be a bit uncomfortable. It just sort of depends. Now, today we're holding postures for 5 minutes. Okay, so we're already over a minute in. And what we'd like to do is just stay here for another 4 minutes or so. Now, it's not my intention to play music. So if you need, if you'd like to put on some music in the background, you're more than welcome to do that. And I may or may not be talking while we're holding the postures. All right. If you have any questions, again, you can unmute yourself, or you could put something in the chat there, and I'll take a look at it. Okay. Otherwise, we've got about 3 minutes left in this particular posture. All right. So now we'd like to come up out of that pose, and we'll take the legs now straight. Okay. And same idea. We fold forward over the legs, and we want to gently stretch the back of the spine. Okay, so we come forward and down, nice and relaxed. Again, feel free to use support if you feel that you need it. So propping your elbows up on something, putting something under your forehead, stacking pillows or things of that nature. Those are all perfectly fine to do. Now, if you don't feel like you're being pulled forward, so sometimes you see people in yoga class in a pose like this, and they're like this. They're sort of holding themselves up. And if they didn't have their hands back there, it's like they would fall backward. Okay, if that is happening to you, then you want to sit up on something, maybe a block or a blanket. You also can put something under your knees. And what you want is to feel like gravity is pulling you forward. Okay, you aren't pulling yourself down. You're not pushing yourself down. Just gravity is gently pulling you forward. Okay, so again, we're about a minute into this first posture or the second posture. We're going to be here for about 4 more minutes. And again, let me know if you need a hand, if you have a question about anything. Again, you can just put on some relaxing music and enjoy the next few minutes. Sometimes I'm asked about the breath in Yin, and the way that I was taught Yin, and I was taught Yin by the gentleman that basically created this style as we know it today. There's no particular way to breathe in Yin Yoga. It's not to say that you can't combine Yin with pranayams, but pranayams are a type of control, and control is a yang quality. And Yin is about surrender, about letting go. And so usually in Yin, we just let the breath go. We let it be how it wants to be. It finds its own rhythm and its own depth naturally. So it's a very common question for new people. In a class like a vinyasa class, like I just got finished teaching, if you don't have the breathing, I would argue that it just almost becomes a workout. It almost stops being yoga. And that's just my feeling on it. Okay, so there's no rule that applies across the board. So we can do Yin, and we don't need to be breathing in a particular way. But if we're doing flow, like a vinyasa flow class, then the breathing becomes very, very important. Okay, so we got about 2 minutes left here. All right, so we're coming up, and we will eventually make our way back onto our back. And in this style of practice, we call that a rebound. Okay, so we will be coming back into a rebound. And you just relax on your back, and you just still your body and feel the sensations. And you want to rebound before you do any counter stretching. So you come back on your back, close your eyes, and just feel the sensations in your spine, back, or wherever they are. But in this case, they're probably going to be in your back. Good. Now we'll do a little bit of counter stretching. So we bring our legs in and we give them a little squeeze, move around a little bit, and just shake out any lingering discomfort that's there as best as we can. It may not go completely away, but we just want to get as close as we can. So shake it out, release. Good. And then we will stabilize everything with what's called the hinge. So our hands go under our hips, the palms are down. So I'm sort of sitting on the backs of my hands. I extend my legs up. Now, if there's any pain in my back, I'm going to bend my knees until that pain goes away. Otherwise, the legs are straight. Take a nice deep breath, lift my head and neck up. And then exhale, slowly lower the legs toward the ground. And just before they touch, I pause, take a deep breath in, and then exhale back onto my back. Now this next pose might be a little bit hard to demonstrate given the angle of the camera. So I want you to listen very carefully, especially if you're new. Okay? What I'd like you to do is move your hips over to the right edge of your mat. Okay, so the blue mat ends about here, and my hip is right up where the blue mat ends. Okay, then I'm going to take my left leg and I'll move it over to the left. Then I take my right ankle and cross it over the left one. Now I leave my hips on the ground. I'm not doing this. Very common mistake. That is incorrect. The hips stay down. Okay, and then I reach my arms up overhead, grab my right wrist with my left hand, and then to the best of my ability, I'm going to wiggle over to the left. And so if I were looking at you from the ceiling, I should see a letter C or a crescent shape. And I should feel a stretch right in here, right along here, okay, in the waist. I want to feel a stretch there. And this is called banana pose, okay? And we're still targeting the spine, but the spine's not that sensitive, so we may not feel the spine, and that's okay. As long as we feel the waist stretching, then it's pretty good. We're in good shape. Okay, again, let me know if there are any questions. This pose does not tend to be a pose that uses a lot of props. Okay, so don't worry about props for this one. And if there's any pain, or you feel unsafe in some way, by all means, let me know right away. Otherwise, we're in over a little bit over a minute, and we've got about 4 minutes or so to go. Just a little over a minute left. Okay, so we unwind, we come back to neutral position, and then we take it over to the other side. So moving my hips over to the left edge of the mat this time instead of the right side. I'll take my right leg to the right, and then I move my left ankle over it, crossing it over. And again, I reach up and I grab left wrist with my right hand, and I wiggle my shoulders over as far over to the right as I can go. And again, I keep this hip down. So I'm not letting that hip, come up off the ground. I'm not rolling onto my side. I keep my hip and my shoulder basically on the ground to maximize the stretch. It's not that it's unsafe to let the hip come up. A lot of times in yoga, things like that are interpreted as a safety issue. It's not so much a safety issue as it is effectiveness. So we want to feel that stretch in the left waist there. Okay. And again, if there are any questions or concerns about this, let me know. Otherwise, we've got a little more than 4 minutes left here. a minute and a half left. My screen froze up again. I don't know if it freezes on your end when it freezes on my end, but just in case. Let's see if I can get it to unfreeze. Yep, there we go. All right, so a little over a minute left here. Just stay with it. And this is called banana pose. And it flexes the spine laterally. And in today's class, the spine flow takes us through all 6 positions of the spine, the basic sort of positions of the spine. And it's very good for the spine to move it through those basic positions. So it's something that we want to do on a fairly regular basis. Ideally, that helps keep the spine flexible and strong. All right, so let's unwind back into a neutral position. So coming back to the middle of the mat, bring our arms down, just letting our legs come apart comfortably. And then let's bring the legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze. Shake it out a bit. Move around a bit. And then what we'd like to do is go ahead and we'll hinge up this time. So hands under the hips. Legs extend up. Lift the head and neck. Take a nice deep breath. Exhale, lower the legs toward the ground. And then just before they touch, inhale, pop the legs up and let them pull you up to a seat. Okay. From there, we come forward into a tabletop position. So like this, and we just move. This is called bear pose. We move the spine around, shrug the shoulders, move the hips side to side, back and forth. Just working the kinks out wherever we find them. Okay, releasing tension where we find it. All right, from there we can press back into a downward facing dog. So we tuck our toes, lift our hips, come back. Again, work the kinks out in our legs. Stretch things out a little bit. Good, and then we'll come forward onto our belly into what we call a Sphinx position. So I prop myself up on my elbows. That's the most basic position for the Sphinx. Now, if you like, you can put your hands a little wider, straighten your arms. That's called a seal pose. It's just the deeper Sphinx. Okay? So a little too much, you can walk your hands forward. If it's not enough, you can walk your hands back. Okay? And what we want to feel is just a little bit of compression right here. Just a little bit of compression. The legs can be together or the legs can be apart. That's up to you. Your head can be held up, can be dropped forward, can be dropped back. Shoulders can be depressed or relaxed. Okay? Again, you have a lot of options. You have a lot of freedom here. And what you want to do is decide based on how your body feels. Okay. So it's not so much what do I think is more advanced or what do I think is going to impress people or anything like that. It's what do I feel in my body and what feels right for my body. Okay. And then once we're there, we're just going to hold again. We've got about 3 minutes and 30 seconds left here. Now, normally when I teach Yin in person, I very often don't demo the postures, but I can see everybody, right? But very often I don't demo and I lecture and I just sort of teach by, describing the postures to people. And then I'll talk about yoga. I'll talk about sometimes anatomy, try and teach yogis about their bodies and how their body works and how to heal their body and keep their body healthy and strong. I'll just talk about yoga related things because traditionally, if you were studying yoga, you would be lectured by your teacher. It wouldn't just be exercise class. So, the idea that yoga is just exercise and you can go in for an hour or 90 minutes and just, have your teacher take you through a bunch of postures and then you leave and that's enough. That's kind of a new idea. That's not really traditionally how yoga would be taught. But online, I can't see you. Some people present today may have never done Yin before. So for now, I'm going to be demoing the postures and I'll be probably talking less. But if we develop a relationship as we get better, more familiar with the technology, as we learn how this format works, we can take it from there. Maybe at some point, I won't need to demo so much, or I can find a way of demoing when necessary, and the rest of the time I can sit and lecture more easily. Okay, so we've got about a minute and 30 seconds left in this posture. All right, from there, we will press back to a kneeling position. And you might want to kneel closer to the front end of your mat because we may lower back. Okay, so I want to point out a few things about this posture because this can be a very challenging posture for some. So first thing is ankles. You can see that my ankles go nice and straight. There's no pain there. And I'm on a carpet and I've got 2 mats underneath them, so they're well cushioned. If you don't like the way that feels, then you're going to want to put a blanket or something underneath the feet. You can even roll a blanket so the ankles don't need to straighten. Okay? Now, if your knees hurt, what you can try is sitting on something, right? So putting a block maybe between your feet, all right? And you're sitting on that. Maybe even you stack up 2 blocks, okay? Another thing you can try is taking your knees wider. So knees wider very often, less strain on the knees, okay? And you might have heard in yoga that you shouldn't do that. That's a myth. So it's very often safer with your knees wider. Now you can also sit between your heels. Okay, so this is another way to do it. I'm sitting between my heels. It's generally more intense all around. So if it was already intense, then probably not a good idea to do that variation. Okay. Now the feet can point back, and then some people can do this, where the feet come out to the sides. I happen to be one of those people. This is my preferred way to do the posture. Okay, but if there's any sense of strain in the ankles or the knees, then please don't do that. Nothing is right for everybody. So you may have read in a yoga book or something like this is dangerous. It's not dangerous for some people. In fact, it's very beneficial for some people. And that's what we have to really recognize with human beings. Is something that is right for someone else and beneficial for them just may not be right for us and vice versa. So we don't all have to practice in exactly the same way. That's not necessary, and it's also not how we get the most out of our practice. Okay, so now if you feel a strong stretch in the front of your thighs, then I want you to just stay right here. You can stay upright. That's, beneficial. It's beneficial for you already. If you don't feel that stretch, you're going to lower back, maybe just here to your hands. Maybe you can come back on your elbows. You could put a bolster behind you, lay back on that. Some people come to the crown of their head, and then other people come all the way back onto their back, and that's what I'm going to do, okay? And this is called saddle pose, all right? And like I explained to you, there are many different variations of the saddle pose, and this is a very therapeutic posture. You should feel it in your back. You may feel your ankles, your knees as well. That's fine, as long as it feels safe. Once again, as long as you don't feel like you are somehow harming your knees, your ankles doing this. But where we should feel it is, again, in our low back. Some gentle compression happening back there. That's what we want to feel. Okay, we're again about a minute in. We've got about 4 minutes left. Again, unmute yourself or hit a comment, send me a comment if you need a hand. Okay? Now, one thing I do want to mention that I probably should have mentioned much earlier is that the essence and the power of yin practice comes from staying in the postures. So, one thing that people might do when doing these poses is, if they get a little uncomfortable after a minute or two, they just come out of the poses. And that's not ideal. That really is going to diminish the effectiveness of what we're doing because a lot of what gives yin yoga its power is the time that we spend in the postures. Time that we spend in the postures. So if you're coming in and out of the poses, if you're constantly changing things, then it is not going to have the effect that a yin practice is meant to have. If you want to do a practice where things are always changing, that's called vinyasa, or that's called a flow class. And it's not that we want to choose one over the other or that one is better than the other. They both bring us different uh, advantages. So ideally, we do both. We have some flow that we do, and we have some yin that we do. We both move and we have stillness, right? That's what our life is like that. We run around all day, we work, we do activities, and then we sleep at night. And those are the sort of two opposite ends of our life, activity and stillness. And so this is reflected in our yoga practice as well, at least it should be. All right, let's go ahead and unwind from this. Take your time coming out of it. You might need to roll to one side. You might want to come up out of it and then make your way onto your back. Some people can just unwind their legs from where they are. Either way, we come back onto our back and relax in what we call the rebound once again. Okay, from there you can bring your legs in and give them a squeeze. That's called the leg cradle. Okay, and the leg cradle, again, is just a counter stretch. So we cradle our legs in, we move around a little bit. Again, it should feel good. If it doesn't, it might mean that something is not quite right with our bodies. It could mean we're doing it, we're not quite doing it right. Okay, and then from there, from the leg cradle position, just gonna take a twist. So what you'd like to do is take your right over your left. You can lock the ankles if you want, but you don't have to. You can keep the legs like that. And then we just drop the knees over to the left. And what you'd like is to keep your shoulders basically on the ground. So once again, we're not doing this. I'm not rolling onto my side. I'm twisting the spine because the shoulder girdle stays basically on the ground. And then my right hip is drawn over my left hip. And that creates the twist. Okay. And again, the spine isn't really that sensitive, so I may not feel anything in my spine. That's okay. I might feel a stretch in my chest. I might feel it in my waist or my back. And you might feel it in your spine. It really just depends on how healthy your spine is and how sensitive it is. Okay. And again, we're about a little under a minute here, so we're going to be here for a little more than 4 minutes left. once again, I will mention that you can use props under your knees, under your shoulder if necessary. Um, Again, if it's not necessary, I don't recommend using it. Um, if it's just to be a little more comfortable or something like that, well, you might just leave it be then. But if there's a safety issue, if you feel like it's really way too intense to hold, remember what I just said. Holding a yin posture is very important. So if I have the choice between not using props but having to come out of the pose part of the way through versus using a prop, making it a little more gentle, and then holding the pose the whole time, then I'm going to hold the pose. Okay, I'm not going to use a prop and then come in and out of, or not use a prop and then come in and out of. Okay, much better to use the prop and then stay with it. But if I don't need a prop and I can stay in the pose the whole time, then perfect. Another thing I want to mention is the arm. So this arm here, it's not uncommon for this arm to begin to feel tingly. Okay, you begin to get sort of like pins and needles feeling in your fingers. Now, sometimes people think that that means their arm is going to sleep. That's not probably what's happening. What's happening is you've impinged your nerve. There's a nerve that runs in the arm, and one of these bones here or some other part of the body might be pushing on that nerve. And that's generally not something you want to encourage. So you can play around, sometimes turning the palm down, sometimes bending the arm, moving it higher or lower, or sometimes just placing the hand on your waist will get rid of that sensation. Now, the reason we like this arm position is because this creates the most leverage to help keep the shoulder on the ground. But again, safety always comes first. So if I'm impinging a nerve, it's not something that you need to be super worried about. It's not like you're going to, ruin your body immediately. But if you impinge a nerve over a long period of time, it can damage that nerve. So 5 minutes is probably not enough to damage the nerve, but we want to get in the habit of not encouraging things like that. Okay. So you got about 30 seconds left in this one. Another thing I probably should have mentioned right at the beginning is your head could be in any position, depending on, again, what you feel, what's comfortable, and where you feel that you're getting a good stretch in this posture. All right, let's draw our knees back through the center position here. And we will take them down to the other side. So left knee over right knee, dropping the knees down to the left. Oh, sorry, to the right. Knees to the right. Okay, left over right, down to the right side. Okay, we're almost about halfway there. So about 2 minutes, 30 seconds. It's not uncommon at this point, about halfway or maybe a minute or two in a pose. You might feel that some of the tension that was there when you first came to the pose released. And so sometimes you might move or adjust, take yourself a little bit deeper. So this might sound like I'm contradicting what I said earlier about, not moving too much, not coming out of the posture. But again, nothing is absolute. So if partway through I find that, the tension is released from my body, I can go a little further into pose. You don't have to, but you might want to. You might want to check in every now and then, say, maybe I can take this a little further. It's not to say that further is better. It's not necessarily, okay? But it can be. It can be. And then sometimes less is better. And that's another thing. A few minutes in, you might say, you know what? This has gotten really intense. And I'm starting to clench my jaw, and I'm starting to tense around this. So that, you might actually back off after a few minutes. Maybe you don't come all the way out of the pose, but maybe you back off a little bit. And I will say sometimes you might need to come out of a pose for safety reasons. So again, we try and stay with the pose as best as we can, but if safety is ever a question, we come out of the pose, okay? So please keep that in mind. Safety always comes first. All right, we got a little less than a minute left in this one. All right, so unwinding from that posture. And again, rebounding, so coming onto your back, just relaxing on your back, feeling the sensations. There might be some sensitivity there that's perfectly normal, and it's fine, okay? It should be perfectly safe and fine. Just for a few seconds, just relax. All right, now let's go ahead and bring our legs in. We'll do the leg cradle again. So we hug the legs in, we squeeze them in, we move back and forth a few times, okay? Releasing the tension that might be there. And then we will take a Shavasana position, and we'll do a little bit of what's called Yoga Nidra, which is a type of guided meditation. Okay, and so what I'd like you to do is take your laying on your back on your mat. You're going to, if you can, take a pillow or a bolster or something like that and place that underneath your knees, so your knees are bent comfortably. I'm going to try and reposition my computer while you're doing that. Hopefully you're getting ready for this next practice. Let me see if I can do this. All right. So you don't need to see me, or I don't need a demo for this next practice. So I'm just going to hop in bed here. So again, you don't need to see my face for any of this. I'm just getting in position, so hopefully you can hear me a little bit better. I think bringing the mic a little closer will help. And you do want to hear me for this, so the hearing me is very important. Um, and if you want to do more of these types of things, I can share some links with you of recordings that I've made of Yoga Nidra, um, some longer recordings and things like that. So what you want to do is lay down on your back, something under your knees. If you are at all cold, then you may want to cover yourself with something to keep you warm, keep your temperature steady. Um, and this is like I said, a type of guided meditation, and it's going to last for just a few minutes today. We're not going to go super long, um, probably about 7 to 10 minutes. Now, there are two very important things when doing this practice. One is stillness of your body. You want your body to be really still. And the other is you'd like to stay or remain awake. Okay, so it's not nap time. It's not time to go to sleep, even though you want to be very relaxed. If you can turn off the lights, please turn off the lights. You really don't need a lot of light. You have an eye pillow, you could put that over your eyes. Make yourself very, very, very comfortable. If you need a little bit of padding underneath your body, that's fine. But try and avoid having like a big pillow under your head. We don't want the head raised up over the heart. So you want basically the heart and the head on the same plane, flat. Okay, so this practice, as far as I know, I'm sort of one of the first people to pair this with yin. It's not really part of yin. So I don't want you to get confused because I think it's become popular to do them together. Um, but there's nothing tying these two practices together. This is a different practice that we're doing. And again, it's called Yoga Nidra, which means sleep meditation. So once you're still and comfortable, I want you to take a nice full breath in and then exhale with a sigh. And then let's do that again. We're just going to take a nice full breath in. And let it all out with a sigh. Now I'd like you to just let your breath be completely natural. So we aren't trying to breathe deeply. We aren't trying to breathe rhythmically. We aren't trying. The breath is just finding its own way. Now, today I'd like to give you the opportunity to work with what's called a sankalpa or intention. And to do this, you want to create a statement of intention. So the statement must be made in the first person, in the present tense, and use only affirmative or positive language. So, for example, if I were sick and I wanted to heal, my sankalpa might be, I am healthy. I am healthy. So pick something important to you. It doesn't need to be health or related or spiritual in nature, but pick something that you feel is meaningful to you, something you would like to manifest. And then repeat it to yourself silently 3 times. Now put it out of your mind and turn your attention or focus to your physical body. And bring your focus or attention down to your toes and just feel the toes. Now the ankles. The knees. The pelvis. Abdomen. Chest. The hands. Arms. Shoulders. The throat. Your chin. The face. Your head. The back of your head. Shoulder blades. Back. Buttocks. The back of your thighs. Calves. Heels. And the soles of both feet. Now the whole body. From the top of your head to the tips of your toes. The whole body. Now move your focus to the point between the eyebrows. And bring your personal intention back into awareness. Repeat it to yourself silently 3 times. And then put it out of mind and trust that the more powerful parts of your own consciousness and mind are working on manifesting this intention for you. Begin now to take attention back to your breathing. Gradually begin to deepen your breathing, moving your body, wiggling your toes and your fingers. Then the ankles and wrists, the arms and the legs. Move the head from side to side, gently stretching your neck. And reach your arms up overhead. Give your whole body a stretch. Then pull your legs in, give them a squeeze. Rock gently side to side, gradually making your way onto one side. Resting your head on your hand or your upper arm. Take a few breaths. Relax. Then, pressing into your free hand, gradually make your way up to seated. So usually I finish class with a little bit of chanting a mantra that I really resonate with. But I do have, I'm at home doing this, and I do have downstairs neighbors. And it's a little late. So out of consideration for them, I don't think we'll finish with chanting today. Instead, let's finish with a Buddhist ritual, one that I really like, and it's called the 3 treasure bows or 3 refuge bows. And in Buddhism, you learn that there are 3 refuges, 3 places that you can turn to when maybe your practice gets difficult or life gets difficult. And one is the Buddha. Another word we can use for the Buddha is the teacher. And we might have many teachers. We all have a teacher inside of us, the original teacher. But the teachers, one we can turn to when things are challenging. The Dharma means the teaching. And again, there's lots of teaching. In fact, all of life is really ultimately a teaching from the yogic and Buddhist perspective. You could call it life school. And the question is whether or not we're really learning the lessons that we're supposed to learn or not. And then the last one is the Sangha, the community. And that is something that I feel has become really strong since this whole pandemic has hit, as many yogic communities have really come together online in very powerful ways like we're doing right now. So with each strike of the gong, you can just take a bow if you feel moved to. Buddha, We bow to our teachers, the Dharma, to the teaching that they have shared, and the teaching that is all around us, and the Sangha, the harmonious community. So I want to thank you all for joining me here. If you enjoyed the class and you want more um, uh, offerings from me, I offer stuff online. You can find me on Facebook, mahapathayoga.com. I have a Patreon page where I've been uploading a lot of content over the course of this pandemic so people can keep practicing at home. So you can feel free to find me there. Most of the content is free, donation based, if you feel inspired to help support me. All right, namaste, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you learned something, Caitlin, and I'd love to see you back. We'll be back next week. Unless someone has a suggestion for a different time, we'll probably end up doing the same time. Please bring your friends, tell everyone, and I hope to see you online soon. Thank you. Namaste.